Hello everyone and welcome to Life Begins at 20. My name is Mark and today we are going to be talking about the land cards that are in my cube as part of the massive 300 card update. And to be perfectly honest, this is the section that has been updated the most and is playing a more significant part to how well the cube's playing than any other section within my cube. And that is down to everybody on Twitter that told me to not waste the money on other cards and to get hold of fetches and shock lands. I mean, I can't thank you all enough for steering me in the right direction and basically telling me to stop being stupid and get hold of those, because I'm very, very glad I listened to all of you, because the cube, again, is just playing so much better, and that is probably, you know, at least 75% down to those land cards. I mean, yes, the other cube updates have been fantastic in the game cards and the gameplay the cards are producing, but those land cards have provided so much to the cube. And again, I can't thank you all enough for definitely steering me in the right direction. There are so many people I would love to be able to thank, but again, it'll probably take me about 10 minutes to list off everybody's names. So you all know who you are. That took time on Twitter to tell me, basically, stop being stupid, go and get those cards, and I can't thank you all enough. So, without any further ado, let's get stuck in. So moving on to the lands now, and to be perfectly honest, this I'm so happy, and it's made such a huge difference to the cube, and thank you to everybody on Twitter that helped me to steered me into the right direction and stopped me being an absolute fool. I've managed to get hold of a full set of fetch lands, which I am absolutely over the moon about. This has just made such a big difference to my cube, and I can't thank everybody enough for, just getting me to make the right decision here, because these have made such a big difference to my cube. These replaced the godforsaken tri-lands, and to be perfectly honest, they've made such a difference to the cube. Plays so much better now, and thank you again everybody that told me to actually get hold of these. Next up, again, this is the other half of what I'm very glad everybody told me to get hold of, and that was just to get hold of the full set of shock lands as well. I did manage to get a couple of them in foil, and they do look absolutely stunning. One day, you never know, might get the full set in foil. But again, these have just been an absolute godsend in the way that the cube runs and plays. Fetchable as well, which makes them fantastic, and I'm so glad to have these. And to be perfectly honest, the things they came in, I think these ones came in for the bounce lands, and I just can't stop looking at these foils. These came in for the bounce lands, and they've definitely improved my cube no end. So between the fetch lands and the shock lands here, thank you again so much for telling me to do the right thing, because it just has definitely helped no end. Next set we've got here are the scry lands. Again, they've proved to be fairly useful. To be perfectly honest, I'd love to have a full set of man lands, and they would replace these straight away. And that's probably the next thing on my list, is a full set of man lands, just to replace all of these. But they are doing a very decent job at the moment, and they're definitely on the cheaper end for budget players there as well. Next up, we've got a full set of Payne Lands. Again, I would probably like to, in an ideal world, make these have these all as a complete set of fast lands, for example, which I have got half a set of, and I would like to get the other half as well. And I'll explain the second in a minute. But the Payne Lands, again, fairly cheap and quite good to then have yourself a little bit of mana fixing there. And then the last set of cards we've got here, I'll put 5 to the side there. So we've got half a set of fast lands that came from Kaladesh. I'd love the other half, and that's something that I would like to do to get rid of these Payne Lands here, because these just proved to be very good. And the other half, and I'm just praying they end up coming up in Hour of Devastation. I probably won't, but the cycle lands have proved themselves to be absolutely incredible, and my ideal situation here, I mean, I'm never going to be able to afford jewels. I will proxy them at some point to have a full set of jewel lands, but to be perfectly honest, for now, I'd love to have a full set of cycle lands if they ever do make them, full set of fast lands, apologies there, and then and a full set of man lands along with my fetches and shocks, and that would be near enough my ideal situation without proxying the dual lands there for a mana base. And yes, to be perfectly honest, as soon as I figured out the proxying process to actually make decent looking proxies, printing on either onto foils or just, actually printing onto the cards rather than just printing out from a website some dodgy paper copy, then, I will end up doing that, and something that I will be looking at on the channel. But, I'd love to have a new, full set of cycle lands that would just make my day. So moving on to the more utility-based lands that are not part of a set, we've got Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse, and the last of all we've got Ash Barrens as well. So these are here as a little bit of mana fixing there, in the sense that, Evolving Wilds, crack it to go and search for a land. Same thing with Terramorphic Expanse there. And Ash Barrens I've actually really liked from Commander 2016 here. So you can tap it for a colourless mana, or you can use basic land cycling on it as well, if needs be, to go and find yourself something that you might need. So each of them have their uses. Ash Barrens I do like because there's a little bit more versatility there. Next up we've got Aether Hub. Again, has proved itself to be very good. So it enters the battlefield with an energy counter on there. You can tap it for the colourless mana there, or you can use that energy counter on a one-off to fix yourself for a colour that you may need. And I do like that about this. It's just, there's no real downside to that, apart from you can only use it obviously the one time. But as a no downside to be able to tap for anything on one turn, I have no issues doing that, and you can save it later on if needs be, for any time you want with those energy counters. Next up we've got Exotic Orchard. So again, you get to tap it for air to your mana pool. One colour of any colour land an opponent you control would produce. Again, you don't have any control over this, which is the downside. And again, there are going to be better cards out there than some of the ones you're going to see here for sure. But again, it means you could get lucky in your opponent playing one of the same colours as you, and you'd be able to tap for something useful. Or if you end up having, say, a deck that requires multiple colours, so Crystalline Crawler for example likes to have multiple colours. If your opponent's actually, you've got this and your opponent's actually got different colours to you, it means you're going to get another counter on Crystalline Crawler there, for example. Next up we've got Temple of the False God, and this is just here for just more mana ramp going on there. Tapping it for 2 mana only if you control 5 more lands. Again, if in a ramp deck, this shouldn't be too difficult to achieve there. Next up we've got Mana Confluence. So tap it, pay 1 life to add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. Again, for fixing, don't really have too much of an issue doing that. Again, I won't want to do this too many times, but again, when you need it, don't have any issues. Mage Ring Network. Okay, this definitely needs to be coming out. And to be perfectly honest, there's a few cards that I'm looking at, and I've completely forgotten one of the cards' names. I've got Wasteland in this section, which you'll see a little bit later, but it's the other one that destroys lands, and I've completely forgotten what it is, but I would like to have that in replace. But Mage Ring Network, again, you can tap it for 1 mana, not the end of the world. Pay 1, tap it to put a storage counter on it, and then you can untap it to remove X storage counters and add X to your mana pool. So over the course of the game, if you've got a bit of excess mana, you can keep going up and up and up and up with this, and it can prove itself to be a little bit of burst of mana there, but not fantastic. Shimmering Grotto, similar to an earlier card that we've seen before, you can just tap it for a colourless mana, and that's probably a little bit more useful than just 1 mana by itself. Or you can pay 1 mana and tap it, add 1 mana of any colour to your mana pool. So again, useful bit of fixing there. Next up we've got Gyreach Sanitarium, and I'm just trying to get the foiling to show on that because it is really cool. So this is more of a utility card going on here. So you can tap it for that colourless mana again, which can be fairly useful. Plus you can then also pay 2 and tap it, so each player draws a card then discards a card. So yes, your opponent's going to get a benefit out of it as well, but at the same time, if they've got no cards in hand, you're giving them nothing. So there is that. Plus you may end up having the graveyard strategy, and they may end up having to get rid of something that they don't really want to get. So I do like that about this card, and it has some very good uses later on. Next up we've got Inventor Sphere. So again, this is a foil. We're trying our best to, there we go, show that off there. Legendary land. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more artifacts, you gain 1 life. I did support artifacts a lot better than I do now, which is why it is in here, and I haven't actually taken it out as of yet. You can tap it for a colourless mana again. That is also a nice benefit. Plus you can pay 4 and tap it to sacrifice it to search your library for an artifact card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Activate this only if you control 3 or more artifacts. So if you're actually able to control that many, which shouldn't be too difficult,
with mana rocks and signets and all, other bits and pieces like that, plus any of the artifact creatures on top, you've got yourself an artifact tutor to go and find something bigger out of your library. Again, I probably do need to support artifacts a lot better than I do as of now, because it's all well and good saying I can support artifacts if I've got Tinker in my cube to be able to sneak big artifact creatures on, or show and tell, something like that. But I would like to actually support artifacts a little bit better than I do now, and this then might come into its own. Next up, we've got Westvale Abbey, and this is perfect as a finisher in a tokens deck, for example. If you want to add aristocrats on top there, you're going to end up getting a lot more value out of it as well. So land, tap it for a colourless mana, fine. Pay 5, tap it, pay 1 life to put a token onto the battlefield. That, if you get a little bit desperate, or you've got loads of excess mana, fine, fair enough, you can do that. Or you can pay 5 and tap it, sacrifice 5 creatures, and then transform it by flipping it over, and it just becomes a big bully. And I love this card. It's in the standard deck, and I absolutely adore it. So 9/7 flying lifelink indestructible haste creature, and that is a game ender right there. And I've managed to get out in standard a fair few times, and it's done some really good work. And even in cube, it's just done some great work. This paired up with Zilliport Cutthroat, Blood Artist, and Eli just sitting there. Mainly the Zilliport Cutthroat and the Blood Artist there. Just sits there. You kill off a load of creatures. You then drain your opponent down, gain a load of life, and then just swing in for the kill with that. Next up, we've got Dredd Statuary. Again, it's a manland, but I would quite like to potentially improve this with something else. So tap it for 1 mana to your mana pool, or you can pay 4 and it becomes a 4/2 golem artifact creature token until the end of turn, and it's still a land. So again, I do like manlands for the sense that if there's nothing really going on, you've just got an extra little bit of attacking prowess on the board there. Next up, we've got Wasteland. Again, I'm so glad to have opened this up from Eternal Masters. You can tap it for a colourless mana there, or you can sacrifice a destroy target non-basic land. The other one, like I said earlier, I've completely forgotten what the other version of this is, but I do want to get that into the cube as well. And last of all, I did mention it in a previous video, I have got Rogue's Passage here, and this can prove to be a good little finisher going on here. So you can tap it to add 1 mana to your mana pool. Fine, not too much of an issue there. Or you can pay 4, tap it, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. So unless your opponent's got a bounce spell or a piece of removal, you're going to be able to swing in straight away and do some significant damage depending on what it is. Or if it ends up being one of the token creatures that comes from Vraska, for example, that's just going to be a game winner by itself straight away. So I do like Rogue's Passage. It just proves to be, pretty useful along with Key to the City as well for a similar type of effect.
So there we have all of the land cards I have in my cube, and like I said, the cube is playing infinitely better now just because of those land cards. I mean, the fetches and the shocks have played such a significant role into how the cube is playing. To be perfectly honest, like I said, I'd love to get hold of a full set of man lands. That would definitely improve the cube, and that would go straight out. The scry lands would disappear for those man lands. I'd love to then complete the set of fast lands, and if Wizards actually do manage to print off the other half of the cycle lands, I'll be over the moon. And then the rest of the case is the utility lands I've got there. Strip Mine was the card that I was thinking of. I just couldn't remember the name of it, so that's definitely one I'd love to get into the cube. And then it's just other utility cards and lands, like Maze of Ith, for example, and other things like that I would definitely love to get hold of. And then it's just a case of, well, do I start then taking out some of the creature cards and getting hold of, individual mana bases, the amount of cards for certain colours, like Sheldar Carl, for example, for blue would be fantastic, and other things along those lines. So again, if you have any suggestions for me, let me know in the comments section below, because I'm finding them extremely useful. And to be perfectly honest, the utility aspect of my land pool definitely does need to improve, and with your help we can obviously find a load of cards that will definitely be able to push that section to another level. Because to be perfectly honest, I probably should have said this to a lot of people when they're first starting up their cubes, the land base is probably the most important aspect of the cube and how it actually plays, and I'm actually now finally being able to realise this because of getting hold of those fetches and shock lands. I mean, yeah, I'd love to be able to proxy some jewels, and that probably is going to happen at some point in time, but the land base is so important to how the cube actually plays. So again, thank you all so much to everybody that told me on Twitter, don't be stupid and waste your money on those specific cards, just go and get yourself the full set of shock and fetches, because it's playing so much better, and that's all down to you. So thank you so much.
I would just like to take this moment to thank my Patreons of the channel. I can't thank you enough for the help and support that you're giving me. If you'd like to do the same, head over to patreon.com/lifebegins@20, and there'll be a link in the description below for that as well, where there are plenty of rewards to choose from. With your support, we can really push to make this channel even better. Be sure to check out our sponsor, 5colorcombo.com, for a great range of Magic the Gathering accessories with stunning artwork, plus a great app to draft and create decks on the fly. Use the referral code LifeBegins20 for 5% off. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. With your support, we can really help this channel to grow. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.